The Great Hall of the Galactic Defense Council was the largest room Commander had ever seen. The ceiling rose so high that clouds of strange purple gas floated near the top. Lights from 100 different worlds glowed along the walls. Seats carved from stone, metal, and materials she could not name formed a circle around the central platform where she now stood. Was not a tall woman. She was not particularly strong. Her black hair was tied back in a simple knot, and her uniform was the plain gray of the Earth Defense Force. Standing in this room full of giants and monsters and beings of pure light, she looked very small indeed. But her eyes were steady, her voice did not shake. "I am requesting permission to deploy a human battalion to the system," she said. Her words echoed through the chamber. Specifically, to 7. For a moment there was only silence, then the laughter began. It started with the ambassador. He was a massive creature, nearly 3 meters tall, with hard black armor covering his body and 4 arms that ended in claws like curved knives. His mandibles clicked together in a sound that had learned was laughter. 7, he said, his voice deep and rumbling. "You want to send humans to 7. Other delegates joined in. The representative, a being made of soft blue light, flickered with amusement. The delegation, creatures like walking trees with faces of bark, creaked and groaned in their version of humor. Even the silent, who communicated only through color changes in their skin, shifted to bright orange, their color for ridicule. Waited, she had expected this. Behind her, Lieutenant stood at attention. He was young, perhaps too young for this mission, but he was brave and smart and loyal. She could feel his anger at the laughter, feel him wanting to speak out. But he held his tongue. He trusted her. When the laughter finally died down, the ambassador leaned forward. "Little human," he said, "do you know what happened at 7? "I know," replied. "Then you know that 3 of our finest armadas have been destroyed there, the 4th Fleet gone, the Light Brigade gone, the combined forces of the N gone." He spread his 4 arms wide. 50,000 soldiers, 200 warships, all of them now nothing but dust and memory. "I know," said again. "And you want to send 1 human battalion." The ambassador's mandibles clicked faster. "How many is that?" 100 soldiers, 200. 48 said. The laughter returned, louder this time. Some delegates were literally falling out of their seats. The representative had to dim his light to keep from accidentally blinding nearby delegates. Apparently extreme amusement made his species glow brighter. 48 humans, the ambassador repeated when he could speak again. Against the Dominion force that has held that moon for 6 standard months, against the army that has never lost a battle in 3,000 years of conquest. He shook his massive head. "This is not bravery, little human. This is stupidity." Did not smile. She did not frown. She simply waited until she had their attention again. "The Dominion has studied you," she said. "For thousands of years they have watched how you fight. They know your tactics. They know your technology. They know exactly what you will do in every situation, and they have prepared for all of it." She paused. "They have not studied us." "Because you are not worth studying," a new voice said. The speaker was the elder, his bark face cracking as he spoke. "Your species has been traveling among the stars for less than 200 years. You are children, infants. You have nothing to offer this war." "We offer something none of you can," said. "We offer the unknown." The ambassador rose from his seat. He walked down to the central platform, his heavy feet making the floor shake with each step. He stopped directly in front of, towering over her like a mountain over a pebble. "I was conquering worlds when your great-great-grandmother was learning to walk," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "I have seen species rise and fall like waves on a beach. Your kind will be no different. You will rush into battle with your pride and your fire, and the Dominion will crush you like they have crushed everyone else." Looked up at him, way, way up. She had to tilt her head back until her neck hurt. "Then you have nothing to lose by letting us try," she said. The ambassador studied her for a long moment. Then he let out a sound that might have been a sigh or might have been a growl. "Very well, little human, I will give you your chance." He turned to address the council. "I move that we allow the human battalion to attempt the 7 mission. All in favor?" Hands, claws, tentacles, and glowing appendages rose around the chamber. The vote was unanimous, but could see the truth in their eyes, in their lights, in their colors. They were not giving her a chance. They were giving her a death sentence. They expected her to fail. They wanted her to fail. Her failure would prove what they all believed, that humans were nothing special, nothing important, nothing worth respecting. "You have 48 standard hours from the moment you enter the system," the ambassador said. "After that, we will consider the mission failed and will not send rescue or support." "48 hours will be enough," said. More laughter. The ambassador's mandibles clicked one final time. "Go then, little human. Go and die on that dead moon. Perhaps your sacrifice will at least provide some entertainment for the Dominion soldiers. They must get bored, waiting for real enemies to fight." Turned and walked toward the exit. Fell into step beside her. They walked through the massive doors, down the long corridor, and did not speak until they were safely inside their shuttle. Only then did allow herself to smile. "They think we are going to die," said. "Yes," agreed. "They think we are fools." "Yes." Looked at his commander, at the smile on her face, at the fire burning in her eyes. "Are we going to prove them wrong, Commander?" Started the shuttle's engines. Through the viewport, she could see the council building shrinking behind them, its towers and spires reaching toward an alien sky. "Lieutenant," she said, "we are going to make them remember this day for the next 1,000 years." The shuttle shot forward into the darkness of space, carrying 48 humans toward what the galaxy believed would be their grave. They had 48 hours. They would only need 46. The human frigate Defiance was not a beautiful ship. It was small and gray and covered in patches where old damage had been repaired. Its engines made strange noises. Its lights flickered sometimes. The other species in the galaxy called it a tin can and laughed at how primitive it looked compared to their sleek warships. But the Defiance was fast, and it was tough, and it had carried humans through dangers that should have killed them 100 times over. Now it carried 48 soldiers through hyperspace toward 7. In the cargo hold, Sergeant sat next to the largest weapon any of them had ever seen. It was 3 meters long and almost 2 meters tall, covered in a shell of black metal. No lights blinked on its surface. No sounds came from within. It looked dead, but knew better. Inside that shell was enough power to reshape a battlefield. They called it the Hammer. Captain walked over and sat down beside her. He was a big man with a kind face that did not match his soldier's body. A scar ran down his left cheek from a battle 3 years ago, when the Dominion had first attacked human space. "Think it will work?" he asked. Ran her fingers along the hammer's cold surface. "The scientists said it should. They tested it on small targets. Dominion armor, Dominion weapons, Dominion communication devices. It broke them all." "Small targets," repeated. "We are going to use it on an army." "Yes." "An army that has never been defeated." Looked at him. Her eyes were dark and calm like deep water. Then they are due for a first time. Around them, the other soldiers prepared in their own ways. Everyone dealt with fear differently. Everyone found their own method to stay sane before battle. Corporal sat in the corner cleaning her rifle. She had cleaned it 11 times already during the journey. The weapon gleamed like new, every part perfect, every mechanism smooth. Was the best shot in the battalion. Some said she was the best shot in the entire human military. Her hands never shook. Her eyes never missed. Private sat near the viewport writing on a small electronic pad. Letters to his family, letters to friends, letters he might never be able to send. He was the youngest soldier on the ship, barely 20 years old, but he had volunteered for this mission without hesitation. When asked why, he had simply said, "Someone has to go, why not me?" Specialists studied maps of 7 on a holographic display. The moon was a dead world, no air, no water, no life. Gray dust covered everything. Mountains of sharp rock rose from the surface like broken teeth. The Allied forces who had died there had not even had the comfort of sky or clouds or sun in their final moments. "The Dominion has set up their main base here," said, pointing to a crater near the moon's equator. "They have smaller outposts here, here, and here. Total forces estimated at 400 soldiers, 50 vehicles, and an unknown number of automated defense systems." 400 against 48, said. He had joined the group, his young face tight with worry. "Those are not good numbers." "Numbers are not everything," a voice said from behind them. Commander walked into the cargo hold. She moved quietly like a shadow, but every soldier immediately stood at attention, not because of her rank, because of who she was. Had been fighting since she was 16 years old, when the first Dominion ships appeared in Earth's sky. She had survived the Battle of Seoul, where 90% of her unit had died. She had led the defense of the Luna colonies, holding out for 3 weeks against forces 10 times her size. She had been captured by the Dominion once, and had escaped by herself, killing 8 enemy soldiers with nothing but a broken piece of metal. She was not the strongest human alive. She was not but she might have been the most stubborn. "The Dominion wins because they are predictable," said. "They have perfect tactics, perfect formations, perfect strategies that have been refined over 3,000 years. She paused, looking at each of her soldiers in turn. "But perfection has a weakness. It cannot adapt. It cannot change. It cannot imagine anything outside its own rules." She walked over to the hammer and placed her hand on its surface, just as had done. "We are going to break their rules," she said. "We are going to do things they have never seen, use weapons they have never faced, fight in ways they cannot predict. And when their perfect system falls apart, we are going to be there to finish them." "And if it does not work?" asked. His voice was quiet, not challenging, just curious. Smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had already accepted what might come. "Then we die," she said simply. "But we die fighting. We die showing the galaxy what humans are capable of. We die making the Dominion bleed for every meter of ground they take." Her smile faded, replaced by something harder. "And we die knowing that the next human force to come after us will learn from our mistakes and do better." The ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. Through the viewports they could see 7, a gray ball of rock hanging in the darkness. Around it, Dominion ships moved in perfect patterns, like a swarm of deadly insects protecting their nest. 47 hours until the Council's deadline, announced. Turned to face her soldiers. 47 pairs of eyes looked back at her. 47 people who had chosen to follow her into what most of the galaxy considered certain death. "The ambassador called us little humans," she said. "He laughed at us. The whole council laughed at us. They think we are weak. They think we are foolish. They think we do not matter." She walked to the center of the room, her boots echoing on the metal floor. "They are wrong, not because we are stronger than them, not because we are smarter than them, but because we have something they have forgotten how to use." She touched her chest over her heart. "We have this. The fire that refuses to go out, the stubbornness that refuses to surrender, the crazy, impossible hope that refuses to die no matter how dark things get." Began loading the hammer. The weapon hummed as it powered up, a low sound that vibrated through the floor. "Today, we remind the galaxy what that fire can do," said. "Today, we make history. Today, we prove that size and strength and technology mean nothing against the human spirit." She turned toward the command deck, her soldiers following behind her. "Prepare for combat drop," she ordered. "We have a moon to conquer." The Defiance angled towards 7, its engines burning bright against the darkness. 48 humans against an empire that had never known defeat. The galaxy expected them to die. They had other plans. The drop pods fell like meteors through the thin atmosphere of 12 metal containers, each carrying 4 soldiers and their equipment, screaming toward the gray surface below. Inside Pod 7, watched the altitude counter spin downward. Numbers flashed across her helmet display. 10,000 meters, 8,000, 5,000. The pod shook violently as Dominion anti-aircraft fire filled the sky around them. Pod 3 is hit, someone shouted over the communication channel. Pod 3 is down. Gripped the handles above her head. There was nothing she could do. The pods were moving too fast, falling too quickly. All she could do was hold on and hope. Pod 9 is hit. Pod 11 is. The voice cut off in a burst of static. 3 pods gone. 12 soldiers lost before they even reached the ground. Closed her eyes for just a moment, remembering their faces, their names, their dreams. Then she opened them again. Grief could wait. Right now, survival was everything. The pod slammed into the surface of 7. The impact threw forward against her restraints, knocking the breath from her lungs. For a terrible moment, everything was darkness and noise and confusion. Then the pod's doors blew open, and gray light flooded in. "Move, move, move," shouted, releasing her restraints and throwing herself out onto the dusty ground. The landscape of 7 was like something from a nightmare. Gray dust covered everything, thick and choking despite their sealed helmets. Jagged rocks rose from the ground like broken bones. The sky was black, no stars visible, just endless darkness above a dead world. And everywhere there was fire. Dominion soldiers had already reached the landing zone. They were tall creatures, their bodies covered in segmented armor that looked like it had grown from their skin. Each one carried a weapon that fired bolts of green energy. Each one moved with perfect precision, like machines instead of living things. "Cover, find cover," yelled, dragging a wounded soldier behind a fallen boulder. Rolled behind the wreckage of an old Allied vehicle, one of the tanks from the Light Brigade, she realized. Its crew had died months ago, but their machine had become useful shelter for the humans who came after them. "Report," she called out over the communication channel. "All units report." The answers came quickly. Pod 1 all alive. Pod 2 2 wounded. Pod 4 all alive. The numbers were better than she had feared. 9 pods had survived. 32 soldiers remained. 32 against 400. The odds were even worse than before. "Status on the hammer?" asked. "Intact, Commander." His voice was calm despite the chaos. "Pod 6 made it down clean. The weapon is undamaged." Allowed herself a small breath of relief. Everything depended on the hammer. Without it, they were just 32 humans with rifles against an army. With it, they had a chance. But the weapon needed time to set up, time they did not have. "I need suppressive fire," ordered. "Keep their heads down. Get me a scan of the enemy positions. Take your squad and secure the eastern approach." Her soldiers moved instantly, years of training taking over. Found a high position among the rocks and began firing. Her rifle cracked once, twice, 3 times. Each shot found its target. Dominion soldiers fell, their perfect formations suddenly showing gaps. But more came. Always more. They poured from their base like water from a broken dam, endless waves of armored bodies marching toward the human position. "Commander," reported, his voice tight, "I am counting 300 plus hostiles approaching from the north. Another 100 from the west. They are trying to surround us." "Expected," said. "The Dominion always surrounds their enemies. It is their favorite tactic." "What do we do?" Looked around the battlefield. The ruins of the old Allied outposts surrounded them. Broken walls, destroyed vehicles, scattered equipment from species who had come here to fight and died for their trouble. This was a place of defeat, a graveyard for the galaxy's best warriors. The Dominion expected the humans to act like all the others, to dig in, defend, and eventually die. smiled inside her helmet. "All units," she said, "we are going to retreat." Commander's voice was confused. "Fall back to position Delta. Make it look messy. Make it look like we are panicking." "But we are not panicking." "No, Lieutenant, we are setting a trap." The order went out. Human soldiers began falling back, scrambling over rocks and through dust, firing wildly over their shoulders. To the Dominion observers, it looked like exactly what they expected, a primitive species breaking under pressure, unable to handle the might of a superior force. The Dominion commander, watching from his base, ordered his troops forward. Crush them quickly, he thought. End this embarrassment. His soldiers advanced, their perfect lines sweeping across the gray landscape. Victory was certain. These humans were weak, just like the had said, just like everyone knew. Watch them come. She had positioned her forces carefully. 32 soldiers spread across a narrow valley between two ridges. The Dominion would have to funnel their troops through this space to reach them. It would take away their advantage of numbers, at least for a few precious minutes. She said quietly, "How long until the hammer is ready?" 7 minutes, Commander." "You have 5. "Understood." Behind the human lines, worked frantically. The hammer was complicated, its systems requiring careful calibration. One wrong setting and it would destroy itself. 2 wrong settings and it would destroy everyone within a kilometer. Her hands moved quickly but steadily. No panic, no hesitation, just focus. "Take your squad to the left ridge," ordered. "When I give the signal, I want you to hit them from above." "What signal, Commander?" Watch the Dominion forces approaching, their green weapons glowing in the darkness. 300 meters away, 200, 100. "Trust me," she said. "You will know it when you see it." The Dominion reached the mouth of the valley. They paused for just a moment, scanning for threats, analyzing the terrain. Their commander's voice crackled through their communication systems, ordering them forward. This was it, the moment when everything would be decided. Either the hammer would work, or they would all die on this gray rock, far from home, forgotten by a galaxy that had never believed in them. Took a deep breath. She said, "Ready, Commander." "Then let us rewrite this battlefield." Activated the hammer, and the world exploded. The Dominion commander was named. He had served his empire for 200 years, fought in 63 campaigns, and never, not once, tasted defeat. His record was perfect, his reputation legendary. Other species spoke his name in whispers, like he was a monster from old stories. When he watched the humans retreat into the valley, he felt something close to disappointment. He had heard rumors about this species. They were supposed to be different, dangerous, unpredictable, but they ran and screamed like all the others. They broke under pressure like all the others. They would die like all the others. "Advance," he ordered his troops. "Eliminate them quickly. I want to report victory within the hour." His soldiers moved forward in their perfect lines. 300 warriors, each one trained from birth for combat, each one carrying weapons that could cut through starship armor. Against them stood 32 humans with primitive rifles and desperate eyes. There was no contest. There could be no contest. Then the hammer fired. It did not fire like a normal weapon. There was no bolt of energy, no explosion of light. Instead, there was sound. A deep, terrible sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It vibrated through the ground, through the air, through the bodies of every living thing within range. Felt it in his bones first. A strange buzzing, almost pleasant at the start. Then the buzzing became shaking. Then the shaking became pain. His armor cracked. Not from impact, not from heat. The armor simply came apart, the molecular bonds that held it together breaking under the force of the hammer's resonance wave. Pieces fell away from his body, revealing the soft flesh beneath. Around him, his soldiers screamed. Their weapons sparked and died. Their communication devices burst into useless fragments. Their vehicles, advancing behind the infantry, twisted and crumpled like paper crushed in a giant hand. 3,000 years of Dominion technology, destroyed in seconds. Stood behind the hammer, her teeth clenched against the backlash. The weapon was never meant to be used at this power level. The scientists had warned her it might kill the operator. She did not care. She held on, pouring everything into keeping the device stable, keeping the wave focused on the enemy. Blood ran from her nose, her vision blurred, but she did not stop. Now, his voice cut through the chaos like a blade. The retreating humans stopped retreating. They turned, they raised their weapons, and they attacked. Was the first to fire. Her rifle cracked once, and a Dominion officer fell, his unprotected head no longer shielded by his helmet. She fired again, and another enemy dropped. Her movements were mechanical, precise, almost beautiful in their efficiency. Led her squad into the eastern flank. The Dominion soldiers there were still stumbling, still confused, their perfect coordination shattered along with their equipment. She hit them like a wave, her soldiers following close behind. Human rifles against Dominion bodies, knives against claws, fists against flesh. It should not have worked. The Dominion were still stronger, still faster, still trained for combat in ways humans could never match, but they were confused, panicked. For the first time in their lives, they faced a situation they had not been prepared for. Their training did not cover this. Their experience did not include this. They did not know how to lose. Squad hit them from the left ridge, firing down into the chaos below. Led another group around the back, cutting off retreat. Coordinated movements through the communication system, his young voice steady despite the madness around him. And in the center of it all, walked. Not ran, not charged, walked. Through the dust and the noise and the dying, she moved like something not entirely human. Her rifle fired steadily, each shot finding a target. When the rifle ran empty, she switched to her pistol. When the pistol ran empty, she drew her blade. Dominion soldiers came at her, some alone, some in groups. It did not matter. She dodged their claws, ducked under their strikes, found the gaps in their broken armor. One by one, they fell around her. Watched from the rear of his shattered formation. He had never felt fear before. He did not recognize the cold sensation spreading through his chest, the weakness in his limbs, the desperate urge to run away. This was not how battles worked. This was not how war was supposed to be. "Rally," he shouted to his troops. "Form lines, they are only humans." But his troops could not hear him. Their communication systems were dead. They could not coordinate, could not organize, could not fall back on the tactics that had brought them victory for 3,000 years. They were alone, each soldier fighting by themselves, without support, without orders, without hope. This was what humans understood better than anyone: the chaos of combat, the terrible loneliness of battle when everything falls apart. Humans had been fighting messy, desperate wars since they first picked up sticks and stones. They knew how to survive when plans failed. They knew how to keep going when all seemed lost. The Dominion did not. Found standing alone among the bodies of his guards. His armor was gone. His weapon lay broken at his feet. His 200 years of experience had not prepared him for this moment. "Impossible," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "This is impossible." Stopped in front of him. She was covered in dust and blood, some of it hers, most of it not. Her eyes were the eyes of someone who had walked through hell and refused to burn. "Nothing is impossible," she said. "Humans learned that a long time ago." Tried to fight. Even without armor, even without weapons, he was still Dominion. He struck at her with claws that had torn through metal, with strength that had crushed bones. Moved like smoke. She slipped past his strikes, found the weakness in his stance, drove her blade forward. The Dominion commander made a sound, surprise, maybe, or pain, and fell to his knees. "What are you?" he asked, looking up at her with eyes that no longer held arrogance. Only confusion, only defeat. Pulled her blade free. "We are human," she said simply, "and we do not give up." Fell forward into the gray dust of 7, the first Dominion commander to die in 3,000 years. Behind, the battle continued, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Dominion forces were broken, scattered, leaderless. Human soldiers hunted them through the rocks and the ruins, finishing what the hammer had started. Finally released the weapon and collapsed beside it. Ran to her side, checking her pulse, calling for a medic. She was alive, but barely. The hammer had nearly killed her. "Worth it," she whispered, before unconsciousness took her. 32 humans had attacked 400 Dominion soldiers. When the dust settled, 400 Dominion soldiers lay dead or captured. Human casualties: 6 wounded, 0 dead. The impossible had happened, and the galaxy would never be the same. The broadcast went out on all frequencies. Every ship in the sector received it. Every station, every planet, every listening post from one end of the galaxy to the other. Commander stood in the ruins of the Dominion Command Center, her image projected across the stars. "This is Commander of the Earth Defense Force," she said. Her voice was tired but steady. Behind her, the human flag, blue and green, the colors of their home world, hung from what had been the Dominion commander's throne. 7 is now under human control. The Dominion battalion that held this position has been neutralized. Total enemy casualties: 400. Human casualties: 6 wounded, 0 dead. She paused, letting the numbers sink in. Across the galaxy, beings of 100 different species stared at their screens in disbelief. Mission completion time: 46 hours. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Defense Council, the ambassador sat frozen in his seat. His mandibles hung open, unable to make any sound. Around him, the other delegates were equally stunned. The representative had dimmed so much he was barely visible. The elder's bark face had cracked in several new places. That had turned a color that no one had ever seen before. There was no word for it in any language. 46 hours, the ambassador finally whispered. "We gave them 48, they finished in 46. "That is impossible," the delegate said, his light flickering weakly. "The Dominion has never been defeated. In 3,000 years, they have never lost a single battle." "They have now," another voice said. Everyone turned. The human ambassador, a small woman named who had always been ignored at council meetings, stood at her seat. For the first time, she was smiling. "They lost to 48 humans," she continued. "Actually, 32 by the time the ground battle started. 32 soldiers against 400. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate. "Still think we are not worth studying?" No one answered. On 7, the celebration was quieter. There was no energy left for cheering or shouting. The soldiers simply sat among the ruins, breathing, existing, slowly accepting that they were still alive. Had woken up an hour after the battle ended. The medics said she should have died. The feedback from the hammer had pushed her body far beyond its limits. But she was human, and humans were stubborn about things like death. "How do you feel?" asked, sitting beside her. "Like I was hit by a starship," she admitted. "But good, we won." "We won." Looked up at the black sky of 7. No stars, no moon, nothing but darkness. But somewhere up there, she knew, people were watching. People were listening. People were learning that humans were more than they seemed. "Good," she said again, and closed her eyes. Nearby, finally sent his letters. His hands were shaking as he pressed the transmit button, but his face held a smile. He had survived. He was going home. The words he had written in the dark hours before battle could now reach the people he loved. Walked among the soldiers, checking on each one, making sure everyone had water and food and medical attention. She had lost one member of her squad during the battle, a young man named who had been hit by a dying Dominion soldier's final strike. She would grieve for him later. Right now, she had responsibilities. Cleaned her rifle. It was the 13th time since the battle ended. Some things did not change. Stood at the edge of their camp looking out over the battlefield. So many Dominion bodies, so much death. He had known intellectually what war meant, but seeing it, smelling it, feeling it in his bones, that was different. He was not sure how he felt, proud, sick, both. Lieutenant. He turned, had approached without him hearing, as she always did. Commander. They stood together in silence for a while, watching the gray dust settle over the valley where so much had happened. Are you all right? Finally asked. I do not know, admitted. Is that strange? No, it would be strange if you did know. War is not simple. Victory is not simple. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. She put a hand on his shoulder. But what matters is that you kept going. When things were hard, when people were dying, you kept going. That is what makes a soldier, not the killing, the continuing. The evacuation shuttle arrived 3 hours later. The Defiance descended from orbit, its battered hull looking somehow beautiful against the black sky. One by one, the soldiers boarded, carrying their wounded, carrying their dead, carrying themselves away from this place of nightmares. Was the last to leave. She stood at the shuttle's ramp, looking back at 7 one final time. This dead moon had seen the end of so many warriors from so many worlds. Now it would be remembered for something else. A turning point. A moment when the galaxy changed. Commander, the pilot called. We are ready to depart. Nodded and stepped onto the shuttle. The ramp closed behind her. Moments later, they were rising through the thin atmosphere, leaving the gray dust and dark sky behind. The journey back to Council space took 3 days. Word of their victory traveled ahead of them. By the time the Defiance arrived at the station, there were crowds waiting. Not just humans, other species too. And dozens more. They lined the docking bay, watching as the human soldiers disembarked. No one laughed now. The ambassador was waiting at the end of the corridor. He approached slowly, his massive form somehow seeming smaller than before. When he reached her, he did something no one expected. He bowed. I was wrong, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I called you little humans. I laughed at your ambition. I thought you were fools rushing toward death. He straightened, looking in the eyes. I was wrong, and I am sorry. Looked up at him, way up, just as she had in the council chamber, and smiled. We are still little humans, she said. That has not changed, but perhaps now you understand that size is not everything. The ambassador's mandibles clicked, but this time the sound was different. Respect, perhaps, or wonder. Indeed, he said, indeed we do. The formal alliance was signed 1 week later. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Defense Council. Human ships would fight alongside the great armadas. Human soldiers would stand with the warriors of 100 worlds. Human voices would be heard in the halls of power. But more important than any treaty was what the Battle of 7 represented. A change in how the galaxy saw humanity. No longer weak, no longer primitive, no longer a joke. Years later, when historians wrote about the turning point of the Great War against the Dominion, they always started with the same story. 32 humans on a dead moon, a weapon that should not have worked, a commander who refused to accept defeat, and a single lesson that echoed across the stars. Never tell a human they cannot do something. Never laugh at their dreams. Never assume that because they are small, they are powerless. Because when humans are pushed into a corner, when everyone says they will fail, when the whole universe stands against them, that is when they are most dangerous. That is when they load their cannons. And that is when they rewrite history. The end.